Welcome to the Future Resolution, Miles Mediation and Arbitration's podcast. In this episode of the Future Resolution, we have leading personal injury attorney Mike Rafi of the Rafi Law Firm here in Atlanta. Miles neutral Gino Brogdon Jr. sits down with Rafi to discuss the role ADR plays in his practice, the importance of work-life balance, and his thoughts on the future of the profession.
Mike, thanks so much for being here today. I appreciate you being here not only because we are classmates at UGA, but also because we're peers. We do the same kind of work, and I got a lot of respect for you, and so I appreciate your time here today.
Thank you. I was kidding around with you earlier. It's one of the few times I've come to Miles without the ability to make money for a client of mine. So it's a special trip for you, but I'm really, really excited to do this.
Good. Well, Mike, I wanted to start today letting our audience know a little bit about you, and really specifically, when I think about when you talk to lawyers about why they became a lawyer, they either have this moment that affirmed them always wanting to be a lawyer, or there was a moment that made them want to be a lawyer. And so I wanted to see, did you have a moment like that? Was there something in your life you can remember that made you want to do what you do?
No, not a specific moment. For someone who has very few hard skills, where I can't do math, I can't do the sciences, you fall in the political science undergrad and college trajectory, and it's like, what do you do then? And the obvious answer to a lot of people who don't know what to do is go to law school. Right after college, and actually even during college, I was a TV reporter. And part of the reason I did that was because I thought it was fun, and also because I'm interested and always have been in a lot of different things. I'm the victim of late night wiki holes, going down, reading every article on the internet about something and not being able to ever go to sleep. TV news and reporting was like that because I can tell you some random things. I'm sure you can about your cases too. Random things about subjects you'd never want to know, need to know, or ever think you would know. But the reason is because there was an interesting story that we did that made me learn about that. I was doing TV news during when California was close to going bankrupt, when there was, I'm thinking of all the stories now, when there was a problem with homelessness where homeless folks were being attacked down in Florida. But those things I still remember to this day. The catch with TV reporting and any news reporting is you're supposed to give the two sides of the story, if there are two sides, and then stop talking.
Yeah.
And I'm really bad at the stop talking part.
Okay.
So being a lawyer allows you to pick up the story, do your reporting, because that's what we do. We figure out what's going on, who's at fault, how bad this hurt somebody's life, whatever it is, and then try to fix the problem or take it a step further, which you're not able to do when you're supposed to be an unbiased TV journalist. So I guess my answer to your question is I got kind of I don't know the right word here. I got a little frustrated that you'd hear these terrible stories or you'd hear something and you weren't able to really follow up on it or do anything about it. You're just a guy standing on the street corner saying, here's the problem.
Yeah.
And then you stop.
Yeah.
So here I get to say, here's the problem, and we're going to try to fix it. So I think it reaffirmed the fact that I wanted to try to solve problems, help people, and there's not many ways to do that when you don't have the hard skills that I don't have. So being a lawyer is one way to do that.
Do you find that in your prior experience with doing the TV reporting that there's a link between this search for the truth? Because it seems like what you just described as a reporter is why you may not have had some of the tools you needed to make whatever was wrong right, but that there is this constant search for what really happened here.
Yeah, definitely. But with TV news or, again, any reporting, for the most part, you're limited in terms of time. With the prevalence now of podcasts, actually, where, one story, a reporter's able to spend a whole year on a story. It's changed a little bit, but in the TV sense, you have 90 seconds to tell a story, one or two stories a day, every day. You don't keep telling the same story except if it's a really rare circumstance. Mm-hmm. Here we're lucky, here being in my law practice, I'm lucky to take clients, spend months, sometimes years with them, and get to the truth with all the resources that my firm and any law firm can provide. We can provide people and manpower and time and energy and money and all those things that a TV news station, which is probably losing money, it can't do. So I guess, quick answer is yes. I'm able to, after years and years, sometimes in cases, finally get to what we think the truth is, and then get the jury to agree with us, as opposed to never knowing what the person sitting at home eating their TV dinner and watching news is thinking.
Yeah. So speaking of your firm, you've had a pretty unique background than most lawyers, which is you've worked for a very prominent defense firm, you work for some very prominent plaintiffs firms, and now you have your own firm, which actually operates in a different structure than most plaintiffs firms. Can you tell us a little bit about the insights you received on working on both sides and kind of how that drives you and how you operate based on those experiences?
Yeah, I started working at Troutman Sanders out of law school, and all of my clients, I think, were self-insured. So I never dealt with insurance companies.
Okay.
So that's one limitation that I had initially. But what that meant was that I was dealing with really good lawyers all around. I was dealing with invested clients who were truly worried about their own assets, their own money. Georgia Power, Big Lots, Dollar General were some of my larger clients. And I was able to learn there. You're able to learn at a defense firm where the old saying is you don't make any money for anyone your first year. I don't know if that's true.
Okay.
But I don't think that's true, honestly. But regardless, you're able to sit back and learn. When I was there, Troutman had, 200 or so lawyers. Okay. So you're able to get a lot of different perspectives. You're able to learn from a lot of different lawyers who would handle the situations very differently than other lawyers, or even that I would or will today. But you get that perspective. And you can also make mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes. I still do. But I could make them without risking, for the most part, being fired, without worrying about, not having a senior lawyer check up on me. Yeah. So I thought it was a great learning environment. But like you, I graduated law school in 2011. The world was not great for lawyer jobs.
Yeah.
So, to be lucky and thankful to have that job in the first place, and then leaving, I think I was voted unofficially of my summer class at Troutman, most likely to leave first. And everybody was right. I think I bet on myself too, because it wasn't what I wanted to do. I didn't want to get into business disputes and trying to keep the company bottom line down. I remember working there, you'd win a case, whether it was summary judgment or get a really low verdict on a case or settlement on a case that was probably worth more. The corporate client says to you, well, thanks, but we shouldn't have been sued in the first place and your bills are too high. That's not the most rewarding thing in the world. So that's probably the main reason I left there. I just didn't get self-worth or satisfaction out of work, I guess, as most millennials are in that category maybe now. But since I've made the change, it's been a lot of fun. My parents own their own business, and that's what I grew up with. Okay. So that was probably a driver too, was being able to own my own business, do what I want to do what I didn't want to do, whether that actually happened in practice. And whether you have that freedom, I don't know, it might be a different answer. But that was what I wanted to do. And then I worked for a couple different plaintiffs firms. I was lucky enough to work with Jeb Butler and Darren Tobin. They had been open for about 6 months. So they were going through how do we figure this thing out? Yeah. Just like any new firm does. Yeah. Luckily, I was 6 months, they had 6 months under their belt, but, I say luckily because they had figured a lot of things out. But over the year or so that I worked there, I think we collectively figured out together how to run a business, how to manage clients and do all the things that you have to do when you're part of a small firm, which I had never really been. You can't really be a specialist in a small firm. And what I mean by that is you have to be a bookkeeper, an accountant, a marketer. Yeah. You have to be all those things. Yeah. You have to be the person that calls clients back, that sometimes answers the phone. Yeah. You have to be everybody. And I figured that out with them, with, again, reducing my risk because they paid me. And then when I opened up my own firm, I feel like I was, at step 5 instead of step 0. Yeah. I don't know what step I'm on now. Might be 6, might still be 5, but I'm still, I'm way better than I was.
So with your experience, kind of having a smaller firm that's grown out and with so many law school students and new attorneys wanting to hang their own shingle, what would be some of your advice to people that, don't understand that there is this business aspect to practicing law and having your own firm, and that you're doing a lot of that more than you are actually practicing?
Yeah,
what would you say to a new lawyer who wants to hang their own shingle?
I'm going to change your question a little bit.
Okay.
But we have a friend of ours, a very good friend, who is currently going through this analysis right now. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do.
Yeah. I know you and I have sat on a porch explaining this same thing within the last week.
Yeah.
So I think what you need to start a new business, at least a personal injury law firm, you need three things. You need clients, so you got to know how to get them or where you're going to get them from or who the heck you're going to represent. Mm-hmm. You can be the best lawyer in the world. If you don't have a client, you don't have a business.
Right.
So, one, you need clients.
Okay.
Two, you need some money.
Yeah.
Because running this kind of practice can be expensive, but typically, maybe all the time, you're spending your money on the front end. Yeah. So you've got to be able to spend that money, still go to sleep at night, knowing that money's out there, and then you need to be able to recover it on the back end. That brings me to the third thing is you need the knowledge to do the work you want to do. I separate skill and knowledge because there's a lot of people skilled at things. I won't even take it out of me. There might be somebody out there that's the best debater in the world or the best writer in the world.
Right.
But if that person doesn't have the knowledge of how it works in a law firm or a lawsuit or whatever area they're talking about, I can't go have Stephen King write my briefs.
Right.
They'd be enjoyable.
Right.
But he's not going to succeed because he doesn't have the knowledge of why and what to do as a lawyer.
Yeah.
So you need clients, you need money, you need knowledge.
Yeah.
What I would tell younger lawyers is you probably can't get clients, you probably don't have the money, and you probably don't have the knowledge.
Yeah.
So stay the heck away. Yeah, and I say that tongue in cheek here because I don't know if I had all three of those things at the level that I wish I would have.
Yeah.
But it goes back to, and I'm going to steal from Steve Harvey here. If you've ever seen the YouTube video of him before the Family Feud, one of the Family Feud episodes, he talked about jumping. You got to there's no good time to jump in order to get happiness and what you want. You've got to be willing to jump. So, maybe you don't have all three of those things.
Right.
But you have to have the money. There's no doubt about that. You can learn on the job, and no one ever is going to have 100% of the knowledge.
Yeah.
And you have to have some clients. If I was waiting for the ability to have the same amount or level of clients that I have now, I'd still be waiting. I wouldn't have a law firm.
Yeah.
So they're movable, these three things, but that's what you need. And you just need to stay on top of where you stand on those three things. Yeah. And then I guess the last thing I'd say to younger lawyers is prepare. When I was doing defense work, I didn't meet other plaintiffs' lawyers other than ones I was in cases with. Yeah. And it's if you're on the defense side at least, it's tough to switch over because the plaintiff's world is an insular world. Yeah. And you as a defense lawyer, a Troutman Sanders like me, I can't go show up to a GTLA event and walk in and say, I'm Mike Rafi, a defense lawyer looking for a job. Yeah. I think you'd get a job if you did that. Yeah. But you must be pretty sure because somebody you work with is going to find out. Right. So I guess I would tell younger lawyers to focus on how you get clients, how you get money, and how you get the knowledge. And the knowledge I think you can get from a defense firm. The money you can get by saving, by begging friends and family, by going to a bank, asking for a credit line or whatever you need. And then the clients, you have to be out there making friends. Yeah. And that's tough when you're doing defense work because you've got to balance billable hours with getting out and networking. Yeah. And if anyone was listening, that pause was Parag Shah walking in, who might be the best networker I know. So maybe he could come into the podcast and tell us how he gets all these clients and speaking engagements. He might be the expert that's supposed to be on this podcast.
No. We got the right guy. So, Mike, I want to shift gears just a little bit. We're still in the same vein, but I want to, a lot of times people have had either an attorney or an experience while practicing that has dramatically changed how they practice or how they litigate. and you're a guy who's a trial lawyer. You've tried a bunch of cases. You pride yourself on taking tough situations and getting good results. Who or what experience has allowed you to be who you are?
Yeah, I'd probably give you two answers to that. In full disclosure, you told me you were going to ask that question a day or two ago. And I've been really thinking about how to answer that. That's probably the toughest question I know we're going to cover here, for me at least, because there's a lot of people. I talked about Jeb and Darren and helping me with the business side of things. So that's one. But in terms of just generally how to lawyer, how to conduct a business, how to treat other people, there's a lawyer at Troutman named Dan Reinhardt. He's since retired. When he was there, I don't know, he joined Troutman with like 20 or 25 lawyers at the firm. So, I mean,
oh, wow.
Think about how long ago that was. And be sure to tell him I called him old. But it was actually a case against Jeff Shire and Alan Hamilton. They had recently opened up their shop, and I was torturing them. And Jeff would tell you, I was literally torturing them because I wanted to show them. I knew who they were, and I looked up to them. I still do, and I wanted to show them, hey, I can hang with you guys. I can get after you. So, I'd write a letter, a 6.4 letter for better discover responses. I'd say, hey, please respond within 10 days. On day 11, I'd say, you guys didn't respond. What's going on?
Yeah.
And Dan Reinhardt's on all these emails, and at some point, Shiver will tell you to this day that he didn't know that he replied all. He knew he replied all. When he wrote back, something like, calm the down, Rafi, is what he wrote. And Dan called me over, and it frankly had never crossed my mind that I was doing anything wrong or that I was working them too hard. But Dan calls in and goes, you got to relax. You got to relax. He goes, these people are going to get sick of you. And I said, yeah, so, something like that. And he said, yeah, you're going to keep working with these people for a long time. Whether it's on that side or this side or whatever it is. So Dan goes, I got you, though. I got you. And when you leave Dan's office, every time he tells you, don't screw it up, Rafi. It's just what he says when you leave. Okay. So I leave, and he says that to me. And by the time I get back to my computer, I'm on the other side of the floor. There's an email in my inbox from Dan to Jeff and Alan. It says, and if you know me, I don't drink coffee. But I was probably acting like I was because I was all hopped up. And Dan wrote something like, Rafi's gotten into the coffee stash, the good stuff. He's all hopped up today. We've taken away his coffee privileges. Don't worry, take the time you need, but we would like to get the case moving.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And, I've told the story to the lawyers that I've hired in my firm because, you push until you make your point. And then you got to continue to work with these people. So in terms of a moment or a story that I tell that makes me at least think about how I'm perceived, that's the one. And then generally I've had some pretty good bosses. I've had some pretty terrible bosses as a lawyer. And you get to a point where you decide, I'm either going to emulate the good or emulate the bad. And you just hope that you emulate the good more than the bad.
Yeah.
What I would tell people to do is if you're ever going through a breakup, like a relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, whatever it is, write down all the things you like and don't like about that person. That way, if you have second thoughts, you can think back about it.
That's very lawyerly of you.
Oh, yeah. My wife will tell you, we make a lot of pro-con lists in my house. Should we move? But do that with bosses and do that with mentors or people you look up to and say, these are the really good things about that person, and here's some of the bad. And then try to stay on the good side of it more than the bad side.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's all this is. It's relationship building. It's showing your worth and your value and not making people mad at you, which sometimes you need to. Sometimes that's going to happen. But you can do it in a way that's professional and respectful.
It sounds like Dan was teaching you about civility in the law practice.
Yeah.
That you're going to be continuing to work with these people, and that there is this kind of baseline of respect and communication that you have with folks, and it's not all about the win, I guess.
Yeah, bulldogs are great in settings that require bulldogs.
Yeah.
But, softer touch is required. Imagine nowadays if I said this to one of my lawyers yesterday. We were settling a case and we were debating, frankly, whether the client needed the soft touch or needed a more stern line about what we thought about the case, what the pros and cons were, more pros and cons.
Yeah.
And And we didn't really have a good answer for it. The answer was both. You know, you have to be able to flip that switch and treat clients, lawyers, coworkers, employees, whoever you got.
Yeah.
You need to be able to adapt in those situations. And, you know, what I took away from Dan's email and Dan's conversation with me back then, God, this would have been 2012, maybe, I mean, something like that.
Yeah.
You know, so 7-8 years later. What I take away from it still to this day is, you know, think about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and have a purpose. And if you check that box, you know, hey, I want you to hear me and know I'm working my butt off on this case. Once you prove that to the other side, pull back a little bit, you know, then, and always do it in a respectful way. I don't think I was being disrespectful at the time,
Right.
but I was pushing, and that wasn't the right thing to do at that exact moment because I had made my point.
Yeah.
So, and this is true, I think, through all walks of life.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Right.
Whether it's friends, family, loved ones, coworkers, you know, you can only tell your coworker, do this or don't do this so many times, you know?
Right.
And you can only say it in such a loud voice or a quiet voice so many times.
Right.
So.
Well, so one of the things I'd like to shift to a little bit, Mike, is, you know, we talk a lot. When you look at the daily report, we always see wins.
Yeah.
And when you look at the different listservs, whether you're on GTLA, GDLA, it's all about the wins. I want to talk a little bit about a loss that may not necessarily be a case, but a loss you've experienced in while being a lawyer that has taught you something special and how you still overcame that. Now, I want to exclude your loss in a mock trial competition your second year of law school, but I want to focus on something in your practice.
Well, I didn't see that coming. I did not. I got to drink a water here, take a breathe. All right. So a loss other than to you is what you're asking. I want you to actually say it.
Yeah. A loss other than to me.
Okay.
Gino Brogdon Jr.
I can't. I cannot wait until we one day play basketball so I can avenge. But yeah, I've thought about that. I've thought about the losses a lot. And actually, there's a group in GTLA that did a speaking, some seminars about what your biggest loss was. And I think that's actually one of the most helpful things I've ever heard, because you do only hear about the wins. And even when it is a loss from a plaintiff's perspective in the daily report, it's a win for the defense.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of losses in terms of cases that I thought were going to be more than they were and things outside of our control. Okay. You know, you get a client who's great, and then you find out that they went to, you know, an orthopedic surgeon 6 days before a crash, and they were hurt. Yeah. And those ones I'll even separate out of our conversation because there's nothing we can do about that. Yeah. You know, the facts are what the facts are. I've got a case right now, though, where a client of ours is a real estate photographer. And we filed a lawsuit because when he went in the house, the homeowner wasn't told by the real estate company that he was coming to take photos. And he got shot. She came out of the back of the house and shot him. And right now, I won't say too much, but right now this case is on appeal. And we lost because judge decided that there's no duty on the part of the real estate company to notify the homeowner this person's coming to take photos, which I common sense wise, I disagree with. The law is a little trickier sometimes. Yeah. So, you know, having to call that client up and explain that to him is really tough. Yeah. So that's one loss that we've learned to try our best to help clients understand a little more the negatives or some of the risks of the case. Mm-hmm. I would say the best story, though, that I can share with everybody in terms of losses is my first employee. The first person I hired probably got the raw end of the stick to some degree working for me because I didn't know what to do in terms of being an employer. It was tough for me because I'm very hands-on. Yeah. Very hands-on. But I'm trying my best to give people space and freedom to do things. And that's really tough for me because, you know, I want things done to the best, whatever that means, to the best degree it can be done, which usually in my mind is my way.
Yeah.
So the loss was when that person left and that person said, hey, you won't give me space, or you won't give me freedom, or it's not fun to work here.
Yeah.
That was tough. And then you really go back to the drawing board of how I'm going to approach employers and approach the employer-employee relationship, and also just the general person-to-person relationship. Without a doubt, I have found that running a business, running a law firm is harder than being a lawyer.
Yeah.
I miss the days where I'd go into Troutman, I'd have a whole stack of thousands of pages on my desk, and that's what I was doing from 8 to 6.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I did.
Yeah.
I did lawyer work. If I got 50, 60% of my day in lawyer work, I'm really happy. I mean, that's a good day.
Yeah.
Now. So then your role in the firm, and my firm's grown from me 3 years ago to now we've got 8 people.
Yeah.
My role has changed, and you got to let people be who they are to some degree.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that they can grow and they can succeed, and so can your firm. So I would say the biggest L that I took was hiring in that first person who left and said, this isn't for me. Yeah. And then you go back to your pro-con list and say, all right, was I acting like the good boss that I had?
Yeah, right.
Was I acting like the other one, the bad boss? And you look at the pro-con list, you got to evaluate yourself, and you say, all right, well, I'll check off what, and you look at the list, and it's, oh, I was on the bad side.
Yeah.
I was on the really bad side, so I should stop that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, all good intentions, always, but not in execution.
Yeah. So and tell me if I'm misreading this, but part of what I hear you saying is what you learned in this was allowing people to be themselves and learning how to manage in a way that A, respects people's space and who they are, but B, kind of how you'd want to be managed.
Yeah, it's a trust thing. I can trust myself.
Okay.
I know I'm going to get that, whatever it is, done in a positive way or a persuasive way, whatever I'm thinking of for writing. I'm going to get it done. I'm going to get it done by the deadline. It's going to be good, and I'm going to feel confident about it. You got to trust that other people are going to do that. Yeah, you got to put in backstops or some sort of, checkpoints to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to do. Right. But you got to trust them. And if you don't trust your employees, if you don't let them be lawyers or paralegals or whatever you got at your firm, if you don't let them do their job because you're trying to do their job for them, then, it's not worth it. And, that was really tough for me to learn, probably because I'm a terrible employee myself. I'm a terrible employee. Maybe that's why I own my own business now. So I'm thinking everybody else is probably a terrible employee, doing what they want to do, not doing it the way, pushing back. And that's not the case. And I'd also never been an employer. I'd never been in a job where I managed anybody. So, the biggest loss was that first managing somebody, that first experience. It's like, unless you're some of the very few people I know, your first loss in relationships generally is usually your first boyfriend or girlfriend.
Right.
It's like, I would not want to marry me. It's like, I don't know what grade it was. I don't want to marry that me.
Right.
And I'm sure that the girl I dated did not want to marry. Looking back, it's like, wow, that guy was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're however old.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt about my business. Was I was kind of like a dumb teenager dating the first person that I hired because I was trying to figure out what the heck to do.
Right.
Don't have it all figured out now, but I certainly know more of what not to do.
Yeah.
And that's a tough loss too, because it's a personal relationship loss. It's in that column, as opposed to I lost a case, which, hopefully this case I told you about, I won't actually lose in the end. But those are the tougher ones.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find?
I'm going to cut you off. I apologize. I'm going to tell you one other thing.
Okay.
Because it just came up. I was just talking to somebody about it today. There's another part of this, which is like handling a loss when you do lose a case. I don't want to represent people that don't. I don't want to use the word deserve. I don't want to represent people who aren't in the right. That's what I would say.
Right.
I want good clients who are truly hurt and it truly wasn't their fault.
Right.
I had a case against Brantley Rowland over at Louis Brisbois, who there was one question in the case. Was my guy, it was a death case. Was he shot and killed inside the apartment complex or outside? in front of me listening, thinking, well, Six Flags says this. Let's assume Six Flags isn't applicable. But anyway, that was the issue in the case. Where was this guy shot? And Brantley did a better job than I did at convincing the police to get the photos of the shooting. I couldn't get them. And when we got the photos, we looked at him and said, oh yeah, this guy, he was killed outside the apartment complex. It wasn't inside. So you have two options at that. Case is clearly a loss from my point of view. It's a loss.
Right.
So here's the thing. What do? Do you keep pushing forward and say, well, I'm going to try anyway? Which one argument for that is that's in your client's interest. Mm-hmm. The other side of it is, do you say, throw in the white flag and say, this isn't a case I want? This was probably 2 or 3 years ago. And I called Brantley up and said, I don't want to be involved in this case. Called my client up and I explained to them it was a tragic situation, but I don't think this is one where you can win the case.
Okay.
And that alone, though, has bought me, at least I think, bought me credibility. Because I can use that story and say I just settled a different case with those folks and say, look, guys, this isn't that other case where I'm worried about being wrong or where I am wrong. This is a different scenario, and this is one that, if I was wrong, I would tell you that, and I'd get out of the case. So you can use your losses. First, you need to accept them. Say, see what it is. I mean, you can't turn a blind eye and pretend it's not. But then you can also try to use it to gain something, whether it's credibility with your clients by saying to them, hey, I don't think you can win, and here's why, but here's what I would do. With other lawyers, with whoever. I mean, there's always a way you can make something a positive. And I'm sorry I cut you off.
No. But that brings me kind of a different point, which is the fact that ties back into civility with other lawyers in the practice, that you gain respect through admitting when you're wrong.
Yeah, sure.
And I absolutely understand. I think most people that listen to this who are attorneys understand that when you can admit when you're wrong, it goes a long way with somebody who you're up against.
Yeah, I remember telling one of the lawyers who works with me, Dan Kingsley at Swift Curry filed a brief, and he was right. He was just totally right. And, I don't think the issue was really in dispute, but he was right. And he filed a motion, and that's what he should have done. And the lawyer at my firm looks at it and it's like, well, what do we do? I said, you're right. The other side is correct.
Yeah.
The end. I mean, and that was our response. I think it was, those guys are right. And okay, we don't have to fight about everything. I'm going to go on a tangent here. Lawyers spend so much time in discovery, for example, fighting about nonsense, arguing, what's the scope of this discovery request? Can I get 5 years ago? Should I limit it to 3 years? Can I get, this doctor's lifetime records, or can only get 10 years? Can I disclose this? And you look at written discovery responses, for example. I've got ones with hundreds of objections.
Yeah.
What are we spending our time doing? What are we spending our time doing? We're arguing about nonsense. One thing we do at my firm is we start with an order of proof, which is how we're going to prove our case.
Yeah. And
the order of proof isn't evidence, it's people. You say witness 1 is going to be this person, witness 2 is going to be a cop, witness 3 is going to be my client, 4, 5, 6 are damages witnesses, whatever. Doctors in the middle there somewhere. And then you look at that and you go, oh, okay, well, this interrogatory that we're fighting about, I don't know what it is, driving history.
Right.
Does that matter in my offer of proof? No. Then move on. I mean, we collectively as a faction of lawyers in the personal injury arena spend so much needless time about nonsense. Yeah. And you fight about nonsense and you shoot off these emails about nonsense. And it doesn't move the ball in any way. The cases are worth what they're worth. Reasonable minds can probably disagree with that. But the point of discovery is to enable both sides to be reasonable people. I give you what you got, or I give you what I got, you give me what you got. We look at it. We might disagree about some things, but it is what it is. Yeah. And, the fights that we all have in terms of civility, and they can be respectful fights, but or disagreements, they're just, most of them are stupid, are really, really stupid. And they don't help us in front of judges, in front of clients, in front of anybody. And they don't help progress the case. And I don't know, maybe that's intentional in some circumstances, but it doesn't need to be in most of them.
Yeah. There's probably a good pivot point to talk about work-life balance and if that's even possible.
What?
Work-life balance.
What?
Yeah, I know. And I say this is something that's a little bit different for you because A, your wife works at the firm.
That's true.
Okay. She keeps everything straight over there. B, there's been so much in the last couple years regarding mental health, regarding substance abuse in our profession. And I think that stuff has always gone on, but there's been special attention to it by the Atlanta Bar Association and, lawyers in general. It's been a topic of discussion in other podcasts. And I'd like to know your thoughts on A, if you are able to achieve that, and if so, what that is, and B, kind of what your guiding principles are on that. Because we, for example, we spent last weekend, we were at a wedding and people weren't working for the most part.
That's true. I know you and I did at certain points.
Yeah.
You mean certain non-lawyers weren't working.
Right.
So let me I think I can take this kind of in reverse a little bit better.
Okay.
So you ever get an email and your stomach just drops? I'm not even talking, you don't even look at the screen. You just hear the noise.
Just hear the noise.
And I don't know what that is. I don't know who that's from, but I know that's going to ruin my night.
Right.
It might ruin my weekend. It might ruin my week.
Right.
I'm driving over here today. I have a deadline on Friday for dispositive motions in a case. Mm-hmm. I kid you not. I'm walking in here and I get an email and I go, I know what that is. And I look and it's a motion to exclude an expert.
Right.
5-6 years ago, I would have immediately found a computer, started typing a response, going, that would have consumed me and I would not have been able to move my mind off of it. Would have went home. I would have said to my wife, I can't eat dinner. I'm going to go work on this. I would have worked probably through the night and woken up after a couple hours of sleep and worked on it more. And I wouldn't have been able to focus on anything else.
Yeah.
That's not healthy.
Yeah.
That is, and sometimes it's still the case. Sometimes I still do that. But in terms of lawyer health, we got to roll with the punches a little better if we can.
Yeah.
We are in we're one of the few, I think, jobs that are purely adversarial. We used to kid around at Troutman, the business guys, they'd end a deal, I'm using the air quotes here, a case. They'd come to a deal and they'd go golfing and hang out and drink.
Yeah.
Awesome. We get a case, we end a case and it's like, all right, where am I going to get my hours from next and move on?
Right.
And then I think you multiply that when you own a plaintiff's firm and you do plaintiff's work, because not only is it adversarial, it's, maybe this is just me, it's me versus them. Because you, the other side, whoever you are, you're trying to stop me from feeding my family. You're trying to stop me from running my practice and paying my employees. Mm-hmm. You're trying to stop me from making money.
Yeah. And
for better or worse, I still take my cases personally. I'm personally invested with my clients. Also, I have skin in the game, and that's the way it should be. So I take things very personally, mm-hmm. and that probably negatively affects my work-life balance. Mm-hmm. And that's something that, even saying it out loud, you're part embarrassed of, I guess, saying it out loud, but you're also, I'm proud of that, I guess, that I take things seriously and that it matters to me. So then you'd go, what do I do with that to live a life? Right. And the way I look at work-life balance is I don't think you're going to ever get it on a daily, a weekly, or maybe even a monthly basis. It's just not possible in this line of work. You hopefully can get it, though, over years. And my wife, I'll use her as an example. She's a CPA. She worked at a public accounting firm. She didn't have any balance during tax season. Yeah. She also didn't have any balance during business projection season or late extended tax season. Any tax lawyers are rolling their eyes right now. I mean, there's no balance there. We don't have balance when you're about to try a case, when you are trying a case, my office, we just filed 5 or 6 lawsuits in a 1-week span, and all my lawyers are realizing now this is why you don't do that, because they're responding to discovery all within a 30-day span. You don't have balance then. So I think the whole idea of balance isn't going to be short-term. It's got to be long-term. But you also have to be able to deal with the day-to-day. You have to be able to turn off your phone and go do something else. Yeah. You have to be able to have a hobby of something. I really like working. I really like it.
Yeah.
You know, personal injury lawyers, our job is incredible in the sense that we're one of the only professions that truly do get paid when we win.
Yeah.
In fact, we lose money if we don't win. I can think of golfers, mainly professional athletes, golfers who have to win or place, make the cut.
Yeah.
They pay for their expenses, but then they get paid if they do. Tennis players. I mean, I don't know. There's probably some other professional athletes like that, but that's really the only category I can think of where you get paid if you win.
Like truly eat what you kill.
Yeah, and in my world, I don't want repeat clients.
Yeah.
I love my clients. I hope they're not injured again, though.
Yeah.
So you're not making the win by getting a sale and then having that business come for years and years and years where you're manufacturing something and your number of orders are increasing from company A.
Yeah.
So, the business is very stressful. I once said, I forget who I said it to. Might have been like Mike Goldberg or Joe Fried or one of those guys. And I said to them, I just settled a case for $6 million. And it was last year. And I was thrilled.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thrilled.
Sure.
And then
And
then I woke up the next day and I said, and then that case, well, let me tell you, that case took up a whole lot of time. I mean, it took a lot of time and energy and resources. So all that's over. The check's in the mail. My client's as happy as you can be in a case like that. Obviously there's serious injuries if it's a case like that. The other lawyers on the other side, they're happy. They don't have to deal with me and the risk of my case.
Yeah.
And then I wake up the next day. You know what my first thought is? Where my next case is going to be. I need more cases.
Yeah.
And I asked Mike or Joe or somebody, when does that go away? And they said, it doesn't. It never goes away. And if it goes away, you should get out of this business. But, it's like baseball player. If you don't get a little nervous before a game and want to play really well and you're just going through the motions,
right.
Maybe you shouldn't be playing anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that doesn't make you wake up and work. I don't know what you do, but when you get home from work, you got to be able to turn it off at some point and go and take a few days away or take an hour away or something and have a hobby.
Yeah.
If anybody has any good hobby ideas, let me know. I'm still looking for them.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is less of a question, but, there's people always say that, this is business, this isn't personal, but, what you have highlighted, which is really important, is on this side of the V, when you do plaintiff's work and you represent someone that it's very personal to, and you also have real skin in the game when you're spending money, time, and energy on something that may or may not be compensated for, that it is personal.
Yeah, it's hand-to-hand combat. That's
Yeah.
literally what we're in.
Yeah.
I mean, we're on my side, and I'm not speaking for any other plaintiffs' lawyers. I'll just tell you, this is purely me, and maybe I'm totally wrong here, but to me, it's hand-to-hand combat. It's me against you. And when you, defense lawyer, go home, you're going to get paid. Your salary is going to come 2 weeks later. Or if you have a long-time client, that person's going to get paid by their client at the end of the case, whether they win or lose. If you file a stupid motion, you make me work harder than I should have to work, or do things that are unethical, which I've had in cases from other lawyers. If you do things that aren't professional, that take away time and money from me, I'm on a human level, I'm going to be mad about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be mad at you personally. You might represent Walmart, but when you go do whatever you do that's either unprofessional, I'm just using Walmart example,
Right.
but you do something that's unprofessional, unethical, with the goal to try to keep money from my client vis-a-vis me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how personal you can get. It's like coming to my house and taking money away from me out of my, I don't have any money with my wife being accountant. I'm sometimes allowed to have some money, usually not. But it'd be like if I had money in my wallet, it'd be like coming and trying to take that out of my pocket.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not the right way to think about it, but that's how I think about it.
That's what drives you.
Yeah, and it's I think about the Michael Jordan's acceptance speech. A lot of people, or Hall of Fame acceptance speech. A lot of people got mad at him or thought it wasn't the best speech because he talked about all the people that made him mad through the years and how they empowered him or made him work harder and want to win. On my side of things, when I'm working on a case, if I have a really, really good lawyer on the other side, I try not to do anything outwardly. Yeah. I don't want to file things. I don't want that lawyer, that really, really good lawyer, looking at my case.
Yeah.
I want him forgetting I exist. I'm even talking softer here, so that really good lawyer out there doesn't hear me. But I don't want to make that guy work or woman work. I don't want to make that lawyer work.
Yeah.
I want that person to forget about my case. And then I've done a whole lot of work in the background, maybe getting affidavits or finding witnesses or whatever. And then all of a sudden hit them with a short, condensed spurt of work.
Yeah.
And then they go, oh, whoa, what just happened here? This was off my radar.
Yeah.
I don't want to make those lawyers work. And I'll tell you, for anybody who has cases against me, don't make me work.
Yeah.
If you don't make me work, I still want to win my case, and I'm still going to win my case, and I'm still going to recover the most that I think I can. But I'm not going to obsess over that case and go to the ends of the earth because I want to be right.
Yeah.
And maybe that's crazy talk. I don't know, but I think that's the best way to beat somebody is make them forget about you.
Well, I think you sound a lot like, in the spirit of Michael Jordan or sometimes when I'm listening to my brother, Malcolm, when you listen to people that are the ultimate competitors and people that fight tooth and nail for what they believe and what they do, that is the spirit of it. It's got to be personal.
Yeah.
It's not something that's disconnected from them. So I do want it in that same, speaking of hand-to-hand combat and spirit of competition, I want to talk about how mediation plays a role, because I know that you're a guy that tries cases, and sometimes in mediation you don't move much and it's hard to twist your arm in that room. But I know at the same time that mediation has some value to you that may or may not be settling the case. I know that it'd be great if we settled the case, but that sometimes there are other value adds to mediation that, you and I have talked about, that you find when working here at Miles and working with some of these folks that have improved cases, have brought better value to cases, or get at least bare minimum given you information or interaction with an attorney that has somehow made it better for you.
Yeah. You know that my thoughts on mediation are, I'm not jumping up and down for mediation in most cases.
Right.
Usually, truthfully, if I'm jumping up and down mediation, it's a case that has some pretty bad warts on it, and I need your help to get it resolved. Those aren't the cases I want to specialize in, though. My concerns about mediation off the start is that, especially court-ordered mediation, it almost becomes a tax on plaintiffs, that they have to pay for a mediator, and you don't have to use a mediator like Miles.
Yeah.
But if you want a chance at resolving it, that I believe that's the better idea.
Yeah.
There's certainly some great folks down in for example, in Fulton County's senior judges do a good job, but it's a different experience. So I worry about forcing folks to mediation, and I worry about mediating cases too early or sometimes even too late. Mm-hmm. I think all that needs to go into the calculus. But when you do mediate a case, you have to have a goal. And the goal isn't always settle the case, but that should be one goal.
Yeah.
One way you can accomplish that is, this is the toughest thing that we do as lawyers, is think. Yeah. As a defense lawyer, there's no billing code for thinking. Consider case strategy. I spun around in my chair and I tried to think about how I was going to win.
Right.
And then whoever was paying my bills would be like, I'm not going to pay you for consider case strategy. It's like, man, it's the most useful thing I did all day. Right. Thought about how to win. But that's all we get. That is our job, is to think about things and figure out how best to approach situations. So one goal of mediation should be to settle your case. And you got to do the hard work of thinking, what the heck should my case settle for, and how do I figure that out?
Right.
What is a fair risk to walk away from? What's a fair reward to take? And then what's that middle ground? I call it the face you make when somebody says something and you grit your teeth and go, ugh.
Yeah.
That's what I don't want. I want to walk into a mediation and I want somebody to offer me a whole lot of money, and that way I go, yes. Yeah. I feel good about it.
Right.
Or offer me nothing, and I feel good about leaving because I say to my client, look, this is what's going on. I get really worried about that. That grit your teeth, and this number makes it hard for me.
Yeah.
My fear of coming to Miles most times is that the mediator, whether it's you or Greg or any of y'all, does a very good job, despite my efforts sometimes, of getting that number that makes me grit my teeth and also makes my client sweat.
Yeah.
So you need to you being you as a lawyer need to be able to deal with that situation and give good guidance to your clients. One thing we do, I think that's helpful, is before we ever walk into mediation, literally before we ever step foot in here, my client and I have agreed to a number that without hesitation we will take, a number without hesitation that we will walk away from, and then a middle ground of the grit your teeth, what are we going to do, but play that out in our heads.
Yeah.
Because no matter what, mediation, it's not pressure filled. It's not a pressure filled situation, but your client's at a place.
Yeah.
I mean, your clients never sat in a room and had them offer hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars.
Yeah.
People get pressured or feel the pressure when they're in a car dealership and they put you in the room and, they go back to their manager, and the car dealer goes back to the manager and says, well, I talked to whoever, and he says we could take away this fee, or we could lower the price by this much.
Yeah.
Mediation to some degree is like that. Your client's hearing numbers and trying to figure out what's going on. I would say that the other things you can gain from mediation besides settling your case, as lawyers, we can show our client the work that we've done. Now, I'm not into making very big presentations. My thought at least is, if you have to make a big presentation, at least in the case that I handle, I don't know about other folks and what they're doing, but if I have to make a big presentation to you and sell my case to you at mediation, I'm in trouble. The other side doesn't know enough then about my case. They clearly haven't gotten the authority that I want to settle the case for. But when you get to mediation, you can put on a short, succinct, concise, and persuasive presentation, and your client's there sitting next to you. Your client's nodding along, going, this is why I hired you. You're doing well.
Yeah.
So you can gain some credibility with a client, which will help settling the case, and also help not settling the case if that's the choice. It helps the client know that you are who they thought you were, and that you're helping them make good decisions. So you can gain credibility with the client. You can also make sure your client feels a part of the process. I mean, as much as I say mediation's kind of a tax on plaintiffs, it's also the positive. The flip side of that is it gives them a active role in the case rather than just waiting on the jury to make a decision.
Yeah.
Because without this checkpoint, mediation serving as a checkpoint, your client's not involved actively in the process except for their deposition, and that's not a fair fight. I mean, with good lawyers on the other side, that is not a fair fight.
Yeah.
So your client then gets the ability to be in charge. And then probably the last thing I can think of, and you touched on this and we talked about it before, it's important, is that you can gain information about your case.
Yeah.
I learned at a mediation recently that I was going to be expecting a motion for summary judgment on a specific issue. It was one I didn't think was even a big deal.
Yeah.
It kept going back. The defense kept mentioning it. And because when I want to get to mediation, I want to talk numbers. I want to talk money.
Right.
I don't want to talk about the facts. Those aren't. That's not why we're here. But if you're going to keep bringing that up, I said to the mediator, hey, can you go back and ask them to give me a case of what they're relying on? And they did. And I was able to sit there and read the case.
Yeah.
And in that condensed period, I was able to say to my client, here are my initial thoughts of what our risks are.
Okay.
So you do learn things at mediation. You also learn what they being the other side, what they're worried about, what they're not.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the most telling things when you go to mediation is you get no pushback about the facts.
Yeah.
If there's no talk about the facts, you're feeling good.
Yeah.
So it helps a number of ways. And, as much as I want to maximize the recovery for clients, because that is my goal, don't come to me. I don't want a client who wants cheap, quick money.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. You can go do that somewhere else.
Yeah.
But as much as I want to maximize the recovery, your client almost is owed the ability to find out how much money they can get at mediation. I almost feel like you have an unofficial duty to find out, because if the client can get a significant amount of money for their case without risk at mediation, without picking 12 random jurors and seeing what those 12 crazy people think, you got to give them that chance.
Yeah.
And if we're going the business side of things, the time value of money to your business and your client, if you offered me $22 in 10 years or $20 today, give me the $20 now.
Right.
So, and it's not that extreme usually in lawsuits, but make it easier. $20 today or $25 in 2 years.
Right.
I'm still taking $20.
Right.
You make it 30 in a year.
Right.
Right. Then that's what our job is.
Right.
It's making those kind of decisions, and you have the ability to do that. The one kind of tip I would give to people is, even when you are coming to settle a case, it's that case with warts.
Yeah.
You can't come to mediation and just say, I'll settle for whatever the highest I can get is, because you're not going to get the highest you can get unless you have a strategy.
Right.
You need to be able to, like poker, based on the information that you're giving and getting, and the only information you're giving is numbers, and the only information you're getting is numbers back. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to at least posture to the other side that you want more than what you want.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what your numbers are, what your walkaway number is, what your range of I'll maybe take this is, you can't do that job effectively. Yeah. And I talked to a lot of people who say, I'm just going to mediation, I'll see what I can get. You're not going to get what you want out of mediation if that's what you're doing.
Do you talked about a couple things I thought were very interesting. One is the perspective to the client in regard to how much work you're doing and making them feel like they're a part of the case. Do you think that there is value in having a neutral person talk about the case with the client and kind of the empowerment of the decision being in their hands versus the decision being in a jury's hands? Do you find that is a piece of what makes mediation work, or is a valuable piece for your clients?
No, that definitely is. And, the client, hopefully you've been keeping the client up to date with the progress and what you've been doing in the case. If you haven't, start doing that. Yeah. Mediation shouldn't be the only place you say, here's what I've been doing for the last year. But, it is an opportunity to show the client what you're doing, how you're building their case, and also to make sure that the client has decision-making power, because I can decide a lot of things for my clients, but I can't decide whether they accept or deny an offer. It's one of the few things we can't do as lawyers.
Right.
And if you need another voice to back you up or to give you a dissenting opinion, that's the best thing about a mediator. Mediator has no skin in the game, and isn't. Mediator's there to get a deal done.
Right.
I've said to Greg Parent, for example, I can think of one specific instance where I told my client, whatever you do, don't get to know Greg. Don't talk to Greg. Don't be Greg's friend. Don't talk about North Carolina. Don't even mention the state, let alone the school. Don't do anything. Because I felt good about my case, and my client was a nice person and really outgoing, and I didn't want my client to break down that wall of kind of stoic professionalism.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a united front.
Yeah.
But clients are going to do what they're going to do. And I come back after lunch, and, my clients, and I've been in there the whole day, I've seen this happening, and the client's sitting there, and next thing you know, they're talking about, Greg and the client are talking about, what's the best what's the best Jordan shoe? Is it the 6? Yeah. Is it the 14?
Yeah.
Was it the patent leather? And that the client walked out of there no matter what. And I don't even remember if the case got done, frankly. But the client walked out of there knowing that they were respected, they connected with somebody, and then you do the lawyer side of things. They know that their case is being handled appropriately. Yeah. They know you picked a good mediator, and picking a good mediator for a client shows them that you know what you're doing. Yeah. Surrounding yourself with other good professionals, and the mediator can give some really good advice to the client, because with the relationship that I tried to stop Greg and try to stop you when you mediate from allowing to have with my client, the client then can trust that mediator's advice.
Right.
So that way, when they get into that, grit your teeth and do I like this number? Do I not like this number area? That tough number, you can lean on the mediator and try to make a good decision with the client.
Okay.
I think that when the client feels like they are involved and have ownership over their case, which they do, it's their case, everybody benefits.
Our conversation will continue in the next episode. You've been listening to The Future of Resolution, the podcast. You can follow The Future of Resolution on Miles Mediation and Arbitration's Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. If you haven't yet, go to Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, and subscribe, rate, or review this podcast. Join us soon for another interesting discussion. Thank you for listening.